Good evening. I wanted to share with you some things that I'd been working on regarding the sharpening of chisels and bench plane blades. I have a wicked edge, and I have several setups, but this is my Gen 3 on the original base with the upgraded micro adjust and arms. There's some of my own mods in here, but we won't get into that here. This is about trying to improve my ability to sharpen chisel blades, chisel edges, and bench plane edges. Right now I've got a 1/4 inch wide chisel mounted in the clamp here. This is my Wicked Edge chisel adapter. And what I had a real problem with in using the standard 3/4 inch wide handles is that there isn't enough of a flat edge to keep the stone secured and flat against a flat edge. So you'd have as you're going up and down, you'd have a tendency to roll off to one side or the other. And in the case of this blade, I'm able to get it sharp, of course, but it isn't quite exactly what I was hoping for. And here's a case where you can take a look at this blade. It also gives you kind of a reference for the degree of magnification here. This is a 1/4 inch wide blade, so that would be about 6 millimeters, and it's about 8 millimeters across. So this is about a 55 magnification, something like that. Okay, well anyway, I ended up with a micro bevel on here. This is kind of out of whack. It certainly is usable, but I thought we could do better. So it occurred to me that having a wider platen, a wider abrasive, that I'd be able to hold it more stably against there. And that's the direction that I've gone. Let me take this off, because the rest of it becomes more apparent with, makes more sense with the plane blades. I have 3 bench planes. One is a jack plane. The other 2 are just regular bench planes. They come with a blade which is about 2 inches wide, and this is an old one. When you buy them new, they're about an inch and a half longer than this. This one I had been in a plane that I picked up at the local Habitat Restore. And it had been sharpened so many times that it was no longer hard anymore. Apparently they'd only hardened the front edge of it, and it had folded over really bad. I tried sharpening it. I could get it nice and sharp, but then within about 2 or 3 feet of planing a 3/4 inch wide red oak, the edge would be folded over again. So I took it out and I rehardened it. I got some MAP gas and a torch, and I heated it up to a bright yellow orange, dipped it in some canola oil, and it did harden it, but it's not optimum. But it did take up a little bit of a warp, though, and because of that, this edge is no longer straight. But anyway, it's suitable for my purposes here. I wanted to just demonstrate what I was doing. I think I said all of these plane blades that I have are a little over 2 inches wide, and the chisel adapter that I have, it's probably about 6 years old now. It doesn't open up quite far enough for any of them, so I had to make myself an adapter. And this is a piece of T-slot channel, or T-bolt slotted channel, that I got in a kit from Rockler when I upgraded my router table. It works out pretty good for this. I ended up tapping and threading a couple of 3/8 inch holes in there, so I'd have some studs to hang the blades from. And I've got this one already preset, so I know what the angles are and everything. These blades come from the manufacturers with a 25-degree primary bevel on them, and they recommend that you put a micro bevel of something greater than a 25, maybe in the 27 to 30 degree range. So anyway, I measure I zero my angle cube on the blade surface, and this one should be right at 0. Yep, right at 0, and then I will adjust I can adjust the angle of the stone to set it up for the angle that I choose. Now, I chose to go with a 3-inch wide platen. These are 1/4-inch glass plate that I've had cut by the local glass house for 3 inches wide and 5.5 inches long. They only cost me about $4, so I bought a half a dozen or more of them. I think about 8, and it worked out really well. They give you a very, very steady way to hold the blade in one position and cover the entire width of the tool at the same time. It really, really works out quite well for that. And because the film, these are 3 by 5.5, you can only get 4 of them out of a 8.5 by 11 sheet of diamond lapping film. And on the high grits like this, in the 30 and 40 micron range, this is a 45 micron, I got charged $25 a sheet for that. So these patches cost me about $6 a piece. Luckily, you only need one because of each one, because you're only sharpening one side of the plane blade. Okay, now as I was saying, out of a sheet of 8.5 by 11, I can get 4 of these. You do have enough left over to make about 6 of the 3/4-inch wide by 5.5-inch strips out of it too. Now, since this film is relatively expensive, I had an incentive to try and make use of the entire patch, and having it 3 inches wide was that incentivized me to get the most out of it. And I wanted to be able to use the entire thing from top to bottom. But at the bottom, it's down at about the height of the spherical rod end coupling here, at the center of the pivot point. And I couldn't get down that low, so I made myself handles which were offset relative to the glass. I made the handles out of wood. They're super glued onto the back of the glass, and I offset them by about 1.5 inches so I could use the entire length of them. Now on the rod I've got a clamp collar with a rubber washer on it, and that lets me go down as far as I want to go, and I can use most of the length of the platen and I'm very, very happy with it. It works really, really nice. But it has a drawback to it. If you have a wide piece of abrasive like that, you really have to make contact across the entire blade in order to be efficient, because if your blade isn't straight, if the primary grind isn't straight, you're going to have a real problem trying to keep contact all the way across. So while it gives you an advantage as far as holding the abrasive square to the edge, it requires that the edge be square to start with. So you almost have to have a method of putting on a primary bevel with a fixture that will give you a straight edge, a straight primary bevel. For instance, if you had a grinding wheel and you had a fixture where the blade would sit on it and you slide it from left to right, that'd be what you need, as opposed to doing it by hand. Okay, now this blade had already been touched up and everything. Let's take a look at it. It's got a primary bevel which is at 25 degrees. And it's got a micro bevel of about 28 degrees on there. Now, let's do some more of the of the micro bevel to see how we get along here. What's interesting with this setup is because your blade is straight and your platen is straight, you are now able to use scrubbing strokes as much as you want to. It's all very, very stable. You're not going to snag the film on one of the corners unless you really, really get sloppy. Okay, now again, taking a look at this. And I've got a fairly nice bevel started. I've got some dings and dents along the edge there. I'm not going to worry about that for our purposes here. It just means I need to do more work at the primary bevel. Okay, now this is the first one at 45 micron is the equivalent of about 500 grit, according to my chart here. This is 30 micron, and it's equivalent to 850 grit. And I'm going to do some diagonal swipes on here so we can see whether or not we're removing all of the vertical grind lines from the 45 micron stuff. You can see these are diagonals now, and it doesn't take a lot. There's an advantage to having a wide platen in that every stroke that you take is using more abrasive area than if you had a narrow platen. If I'm going to make a swipe on a knife or some sort of an edge with a 3/4 inch wide abrasive, the amount of abrasive that passes any given point on there is defined by the width of the abrasive and the angle that you're going at. For instance, if you go 37 degrees is your angle across it, you're going to have about 5/4 of the width of the abrasive. For a 3/4 inch wide, that means you'd be having about 15/16 of an inch of abrasive passing a given point. Now contrast that to a 3-inch wide, where if I do the same thing going at a 37-degree angle, I'm going to have 3 inches of abrasive plus the whatever the angle is at 37 degrees. It's about like I said, 5/4. It would be like 1 3/4 inches or something like more than that. Or I'm sorry, 3/4 inches more than the 3 inches. So it'd be 3 3/4. The fact is that's 4 times as much abrasive going to go past a given point at any one time. This would be particularly advantageous if you were doing something like a sword, where you have a long span of straight edge that you want to work on. This would go 4 times as fast for the majority of the length of the sword. Okay, let's see. We did the angle on that one. Let's go to the next one. This one is 15 micron, and that is the equivalent of 1200 grit. I'm going to go the opposite direction. Or if I wanted to scrub it, I can do this. Here, now you can see how the grind lines, the scratch pattern is diagonal to the other direction. Now, this won't take long, so I'll run through the progression here. This one is 9 micron, which is the equivalent of about 1800 grit. And it doesn't take a lot of strokes because of the width of the pattern. And you can see I'm also starting to take on a polish. You can see the reflectivity of that edge has gone way up. I'm not going to worry about making it real fancy or without scratches. We're just going to buzz through this. This is 6 micron, which is the equivalent of 3,000 grit. Okay. And you can see how smooth that got in a hurry. Next I've got a 3 micron, which is equivalent of 8,000 grit. And you can see that is cleaned up very nicely too. And it's got a nice reflectivity. And my last one is 1 micron. Okay, and we'll and that looks pretty good. Like all plane blades, you are going to get a burr on the underneath of it, and you're going to have to go stone that off. I actually been getting rid of them by going to a polishing wheel I have. It seems to work out quite well. It's a white compound. It takes off the burr very nicely without dulling the edge. That pretty well clears it up as far as my sharpening of the plane blade, but a few points that I wanted to emphasize is using the offset platen relative to the handle. It allows you to adjust the height of the stone relative to the plane edge, and the use of the higher micron sizes to replace for instance, the 400, 600, 800 grit stones. Now, one of the things that I did want to explain is that additionally is that when you get down to something under let's say under the 9 micron or the 1800 grit, you can go to your standard handles with in my case I've got brass platens on here, but you could have the aluminum platens or glass platens. You have to make sure that you have the same angle at the 28 degrees, but when you're down to a very fine grits like that, or very small micron abrasives, you really don't have to have a wide edge to get the thing sharpened from then on, because they're not going to remove a lot of steel. You're just doing polishing at that point. The other thing I wanted to explain also is that my decision to go to 3 inches wide was arbitrary. You could go to 2 inches wide or whatever width you prefer. I was looking for something that would be stable, and looking for stability, because I wasn't having good results. I didn't think I was having good results by trying to hold the handle square to the edge. Now, this turned out also to be an advantage with regular chisels. Even the 1/4 inch chisel, is that it's much easier because you can see exactly what the plate is doing, or whether it's tipped or relative to the edge or not, and you can kind of feel it with your fingers where you apply pressure to try and keep that stone square. It's still kind of difficult to keep it square, but it's certainly improved. It makes it a little bit easier. So I hope you guys found this interesting. I'm not suggesting that everybody should go that route. For me, it solved a particular problem, but it brought up some other ones too. You know, the need to have a very straight edge to start with. But I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good evening. I'm going to go to bed.